Any filtration removes a solid from a liquid in a mixture. The speed of a filtration is impacted by the identity of the solvent. When water is the solvent, filtration can take a long time. We can speed things along by applying vacuum suction in what we would term a vacuum filtration process. There are different scenarios to be in, ones in which we care about the solvent that's filtered off and ones in which we don't. It's important and up to you to understand whether or not the solid that is filtered out is of interest, or the filtrate, or both. This video goes over an example where only the solid residue is of interest and the filtrate will be considered waste. So sometimes we're in the situation where we have crystallized a solid such that solid precipitates out from a solution and is floating in solvent, like so. Okay. A lot of times, because organic material isn't very soluble in water, water is that liquid or solvent. And that's the case in this example I'm going to show you. It is not always, so you want to make sure you know exactly what the liquid is so you know how to proceed. So we'll go over how to collect that precipitate in this video. So the solid will be even less soluble if the solvent is colder. So the first step after any kind of crystallization is to place this mixture in an ice bath. Okay, the colder that solvent is, the less soluble and more solid you'll be able to recover. Alright, so while that's getting nice and icy cold in this ice water slush bath, there's a few things that we can do to prepare. Okay. First off, you want to know if you're going to be able to do the vacuum filtration, if that's your method of filtration, in the hood or on the bench top. Many times we can just do it on the bench top, and that's what I'll show you here. But definitely ask your instructor if you're unsure. While your sample is cooling, what you can do is you can grab a stand, a couple of clamps, some vacuum tubing, and a few other pieces of glass from your drawer. What we need are 2 vacuum flasks. That's these Erlenmeyers with a sidearm. A 1-hole stopper with a piece of glass going through it that fits one of those nicely. Mine fits them both, so that's fine. There's a container holding those 1-hole stoppers in the room. Then we need the Buchner funnel top. That's this, and the bottom. Those snap together nicely if there's a good fit. It's a firm fit, so if yours doesn't fit, ask your instructor. Now we're going to be collecting the solid in the Buchner funnel, okay? And so we can prepare this. We want to know how much this weighs with filter paper that fits it. So there's a box of filter paper, usually on the instructor's desk. Grab a piece, make sure it's clean and dry, put it in here. Find some labeling tape. We usually have labeling tape on the instructor's desk as well. Put that on there and write your name. We're going to take the mass of this empty so that then when we collect the solid on top of that filter paper, we can take the mass of that and subtract off the empty funnel and filter paper. Okay, so you can take that Buchner funnel to the back of the room where the balances are. Check that the balance you're going to use is clean and dry on the platform, and zero it. Then you can take the Buchner funnel top with the filter paper, put it on the balance platform, and record that mass in your notebook. It's really important to get all of the significant figures, so all the way up to the milligrams or thousandths place. Alright, now as we're getting set up to vacuum filtrate, we're going to use the same solvent that our solid is floating in, and we want it to be as cold as possible. So let's fill some of that at the same time as we're preparing to do vacuum filtration. Once again, the colder the solvent is, the less it dissolves your product. Okay, now we're ready to assemble the vacuum filtration apparatus. So you can start building with 1 clamp. Alright, and choose one of your vacuum flasks and have it sit right on the floor of the stand. we'll clamp that in there and tighten it up. And then I'm going to make it sure it's resting on the floor so it's nice and firm. This is the one that we're going to collect the filtrate on. Alright, so we need a vacuum adapter. That's this guy. It's like a little platform that's going to allow us to set everything up. Alright, so here's the bottom of our filter. We could snap it onto the top. Okay. And see how that rests in there. So the vacuum adapter gives it a nice little lip to sit in, and we can get a firm seal. Now you might be wondering why we have the second flask, and it's to protect our house vacuum system. So the second one is going to act as what we call a trap. So I'm going to take my second clamp and just kind of clamp off to the side with my second vacuum flask, one that has a stopper in it that fits well. Okay, so now we're going to connect from the house vacuum. This is the nozzle with the yellow labeling. It says VAC on the top, so vacuum. And I'm going to grab my first piece of tubing and connect to the nozzle. Right? And I'm going to connect that to the side arm of my trap flask. Next, I'm going to connect the trap glass tubing, my second piece of vacuum tubing, to the side arm of my collection flask. Just going to press things down so that things don't pop off like you just saw. Alright, so the idea is that when I turn the vacuum on, the vacuum is pulling so that anything that comes through the Buchner funnel, okay, solid is caught on the filter paper, liquid goes through, and if any liquid gets sucked through the side, it's forced to go into the trap and fall down to the bottom of the trap before it is sucked into the house vacuum system. Now we're ready to collect the solid. Okay, so we've got solid floating in cold solvent, so hopefully not too much is dissolved, and we want to collect that. We have cold solvent to rinse things down and help us transfer. Alright, so the first step is to turn the vacuum. We're going to be turning the vacuum on, but a good trick is to take some of that cold solvent and wet down the filter paper before the vacuum's even turned on. Then turn the vacuum on, and what that does is it pulls a good seal and it sucks the filter paper strongly against the holes of the funnel. And now we can swirl and just pour our mixture in. Okay, so the vacuum is really helping the solvent flow through. But of course I have some solid crystals still left, so I'm going to use my cold solvent. I don't have to measure. If you have a glass stirring rod with or without the rubber policeman, we call that, doesn't matter if it has it or not, you can kind of try to get things moving in your flask with cold solvent so it doesn't dissolve it very much, and then keep adding that. Okay. Now do the best you can. I've got quite some chunks in here, so I gotta keep trying to rinse it and transfer. And I have just a tiny little bit left, so I'm going to give it a third try. There's a chunk down at the bottom. You'll never get every tiny little piece, but give it the old college try. Okay, when you've declared it the best you can do, you're done. I'm going to see if I can get that off with the glass side. There we go. Swirl it. Add that on. Okay. Alright, now I'm just going to check. If you hear anything funny with the air, push down on the Buchner funnel. That gives it a better seal. I've actually got a really excellent seal, so I'm not showing you what I mean, but if you hear funny things with the vacuum, like if you hear it, you don't have a good seal. Push down, you get a much better seal. So always check that you've got a good seal, and we want to leave the vacuum running with a good seal for a couple of minutes to vacuum out as much of the solvent as possible. Now if you've done a good job, there should be no solid in the bottom of the collection flask. all the solid is on top. When you're done, turn off the vacuum, gently break the seal, and you can see the crystals are collected there. Then you can disconnect the bottom, the filter part from the Buchner funnel. You can dry this off and then take the mass.